tell us what are the things that you want to achieve with the IFDA?
Oh man, a centralized area where the data is trusted.
Yes.
The information is trustworthy.
Yes.
And I come back to this idea of trust as doctors. We learn to be suspicious, we learn to question, we learn to not take everything for granted. I never expected to become a doctor. I sort of fell into it. Yeah.
So IFD is 8 years you've been running, 26,000.
That's the statistics now. I think, that covers a good portion of the earlier career. We have now made the topic of money a less taboo topic.
Money, it doesn't have any color on its own, right? It sort of forms the color in your hand.
We forget that we also need that money to earn money for us because we're so good at earning it with our time.
I've got the choice that if I get up tomorrow morning and say, not for me, and I'm going to change into a complete different profession, that I can do it. I think that choice, that by itself, has got such an impact in many ways, including making you better and better and better of what you do.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Investing for Doctors podcast. I am your host, Dr. B. And today it's going to be our very first episode here with Investing for Doctors. And I would like to introduce someone who's very dear to me. His name is Munzural, and he's going to be a regular guest with us on the show. But of course, we're going to be having other guests as well. Before we start, Munzural, do you want to give me a quick, very brief introduction about yourself, who you are, what you do?
Thank you, B. Thank you very much. As the introduction, as you suggested, Munzural is my name. I'm an accountant, and I'm being in profession about 30 years now, right? So I started with a couple of small practice and then moved into BDO and then moved into PwC. Started our own practice around 16 years ago, KHI Partners, and the previous name was KHI. So we are accounting practice, top 40 accounting practice in Australia now. We do a few other things. We do insurance, we do legal, we do a few other things as well, but fundamentally accounting. And particularly with the doctors, we have a specialized accounting practice.
Yes.
KHI Accounting Medical Proprietary Limited. So only looks after the doctor's side of it because of the specialized tax law that you guys have. Now, on a personal basis, I've been investing on property for many years now.
Yeah, you got a lot.
Thank you. Back in 1999 was the first property I bought, and I still remember it was my father who encouraged me to buy that first property. 1999, didn't want to buy it. My father said, no, you need to buy it, right? And then I sort of look back and I say, good Lord, that was a start, right? So I went through, residential, commercial, construction, very property heavy. We've got financial planners that we work very closely who are very heavy on shares and managed funds as such. Also, we get involved quite a bit with charities. So there are 3 charities that we very heavily involve. A charity called So They Can, which has 52 schools in Kenya and Tanzania, DFAT, fully accredited charity. There's a second charity called Dana Asia that we also do quite a bit of work in Philippines, Cambodia. And we have our own charity, TKF. And TKF, we built a hospital last year in Kenya.
Wow, okay.
And large maternity hospital in Kenya. We're working quite a bit on the Burmese border with the refugees. And a few other things that we do with the charity in Bangladesh and some of the Asian countries. So overall, an accountant and hopefully with a passion with charity.
Oh, thank you. I'm very privileged to have someone like yourself. Someone who has lots and lots of experience in property investing, well as also the accountant for a lot of people in the property scene. I think that's the next level. So before we start, just like to make a clarification about my name. A lot of people call me B or Dr. B.
Yes.
B is actually my last name, and it's a Chinese last name. And the reason I go by it is I'm one of those weirdos that have only 2 characters in my Chinese name. So culturally, you say the last name and then my very soul lonely character, which is Mian. Right. And that's how I grew up. And, it just caught on when I first came to Australia. Right. I decided to not have an English name because I want to stay true to my culture and heritage.
Lovely.
Yeah. And so B, Dr. B, Bai, I get called that a lot as well. So I usually make a joke about it. I say, who's asking? And they go, are you buy? And I was just like, yes, but who's asking? Maybe for you, maybe not. So yeah, that's just a clarification. Yeah.
Excellent.
A little bit more about myself, I guess. I guess the question is why are we doing this podcast, and where did investing for doctors come from? For those of you that are listening in and has only heard of investing for doctors for the very first time, I would like to give a bit of history of how we came about with investing for doctors. Right now, investing for doctors has about 26,000 members, mostly derived from the medical, but also some dental colleagues of ours. We cater to everyone who's basically on Facebook, and most of the people on Facebook, they're about up to the 45, 50-year-old generation.
Right.
Facebook group initially started off as a little personal journey of mine. I originally started posting in a different medical group,
right?
And I was talking a lot about my investing journey through the early stages of my career. So as some may know that I'm not a fellow doctor, I'm about 14 years out now, so I'm PGY 14. I spent a lot of my career originally looking to do surgery, and then sort of gave that up after I found the love of my life, my wife Ainsley.
Right.
So I took a bit of a detour.
Yes.
And during my detour, I started a PhD.
Right.
Of all things.
Yes.
It was a very lab-based PhD. Right. And during that time, I needed to think about what am I going to do with my life?
Yes.
Where am I going to generate the income? Because I think everyone knows that academia doesn't pay very well. And I was on a very humble scholarship back then, and trying to start a family and all those sort of things. I thought about passive investing and how letting your money do the work for you. And so I started on this journey about learning about everything under the sun with from investing. I also started off initially with property.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I've sort of deviated away from it. And probably through some of the mistakes I've made along the way. And, hopefully one day we'll talk about some of my personal journey in investing and sort of the mistakes I've made. We started off investing in property, and, I'm one of those people who like to learn about things. And so I learned about accounting, and this is I'm gonna be like the worst client that you as accountant are gonna get. So I'm the kind of guy that will go read up on things and then come back and then say, "Hey, Munzural,
I love it.
What about this? What about that? Can we structure it in this way?" So thankfully, you're not my accountant, but
funny how you say it is that hopefully some of the doctors that I'm referring to, they're listening. Is that when I sit down with doctors, when I sit down with these people with sort of very high caliber, right? I say challenge us all the time, right? No professional is supposed to know everything, even if you're the professional, even if you're the specialist, right? So we encourage quite a bit, saying that give us the question. There is no such thing as a silly question. Every single question give us. Now, if we don't know an answer, we would love it even more.
Yeah.
We'll love it even more, right? We'll go back, get the answer, come back to you, admit that we didn't know the answer, and here is the new answer as such, because the whole relationship between a client as an accountant, it needs to be a relationship of collaboration, and it's a partnership.
Yeah.
And that partnership means it's mutually learning.
It's growing together. It's growing together.
Absolutely.
And so after, I think, buying my second investment property, I decided I'm not going to do my own tax anymore. And so I can't even remember how I found my accountant. I just found her at random. So there's a shout out to Rebecca and David.
Lovely.
And they tolerate my my questions. So I actually went online and I did an accounting course.
Good on you.
Yeah.
Okay.
The course was actually American based, but it had all of the, it was very about numbers. It was about, accounts, different ways of doing accounting and, accounts, current accounts, and all of those sort of things. So I did that, learned a lot about those things. And I shared my journey on this other forum. Then I started talking about stocks, and I remember fondly this original post. There was a GP who is currently a GP in Fairfield, and his name is Dong Hua, and he just challenged me. It's like, hey B, like if you started a Facebook group, I'll join you.
Okay.
Yeah. So I created
Oh, well done.
a group, and originally there was just 2 of us, and we just said, oh, whoever wants to join and listen to my rambling, come and join me. And that was the start of the Investing for Doctors Facebook group.
And you've got 26,000 doctors at the moment, right?
Yeah,
So
over
how's
26,000.
the time sort of investment? Because there must be quite a bit of time in terms of managing that Facebook and running it, answering all the questions, right?
Absolutely. I mean, initially it was... I don't even remember what I was doing initially. So I wanted the space to be a safe space for doctors.
Yeah.
And so we had to be quite strict with the vetting criteria of who can come into this group.
Yes.
So I made everyone put their name and the APRA number into the group so that they can join. And I've come across a number where some people just put random things in there. So literally in the majority of them, I've actually even searched for the APRA number on the APRA website to actually verify who they are.
And B, from the audience point of view, is that what I do attest is that, remember that when we were introduced, probably about a number of years ago now, right? About 2-3 years ago. And we were sitting around on this lunch and there was that first introduction as such, right? And it was funny because like I look back to it and I say that with a lot of pride and a lot of gratitude as well, that you actually interviewed me literally probably about 1.5 years. I've never gone through such a long 1.5 years of on and off interviews, right? And I respected that. Because the reason I say I've respected that is that you said that in a very subtle way, that Munzural, I've never opened this Facebook group for any other professional as such. This is my safe zone and this is the doctor's safe zone, and I wanted to leave that as protected. I didn't want this to be monetized by someone else coming in. So whoever comes in for the first time is that I need to make sure that this is the right person, right?
Absolutely.
So while you were interviewing me for about 1.5 years, I was like, I was still on the game, right?
I still remember that lunch. I think we sat through the entire lunch and almost went on to their evening sitting, and they had to almost like very gently say, hey, we need to prepare for the evening sitting.
Yes, they came in and say, you guys got to go. And we had to leave.
And I remember they had this butcher paper on the table, and we just like drew all sorts of things on the butcher paper, and that was wild.
Yes, indeed.
I wish I took a photo of that.
Yes.
but anyway, so that group came through my own learning along the journey. I obviously did the accounting course, and I also done some stuff in sort of on investing, about finance, and learning about those things. And as a doctor, that's not something most people come into contact with. So I give a little bit of context. My background is like I'm Chinese. I'm Chinese, and I grew up in Singapore. And when I was young, I never expected to become a doctor. And from my high school courses, I actually so we did the A levels in Singapore, and so the courses I did was core maths, further maths, physics, and economics.
Right.
So nothing in that screams medicine. And I was actually supposed to be an engineer, and a lot of my classmates were either engineers or they went into finance because of economics, and they're all very good with numbers. So from a very young age, I was actually excellent with numbers.
Right.
And so to go then into medicine, which is a very much like a non-numbers game, by all accounts, is more of it's almost like a social applied science, because it's about interacting with people. It's about making decisions based on some scientific information, but also on the humanity side of things, right? I never expected to become a doctor. I sort of fell into it. And I remember when I got into medical school, my mom gave me this very wise advice to say, just because you go to medical school doesn't mean you have to be a doctor for the rest of your life.
Okay.
And I think that was something that gave me the liberty to go off that beaten path.
Good.
All right. Because when you enter medicine, the idea is that you work hard for X number of years, you go through your training, you finish, you get a good job, and you just did that for the rest of your life. I always felt that was kind of boring. You know, I was dedicated initially.
Yeah.
Originally, I was very dedicated until, you know, I loved vascular and vascular surgery. A lot of people would just go, ew, why would you want to do that? But I actually loved many aspects of it, and then I was like hardcore into it. But obviously, you know, life changed, circumstances change, and I think one of the things is that having that flexibility to reflect on your life and reflect on who you are at that stage in life.
I relate to this, and where I relate to this is that, see, when we sit down with our clients, we very often speak in terms of their retirement goals, right? What is the retirement goal? What do we do, and how do we do, right? And very often we get, I suppose, quite intense in terms of what are the financial retirement goal. But then we take a step back and we say, what is the definition of the retirement? And very often the definition of the retirement is the definition of retirement in your mind. And in your mind, in the sense is that as long as you know that, yes, I've got enough level of financial flexibility for me to do what I wish to do at my own terms, that is what the definition of the retirement. And you know what's poetic is that I've got so many clients that they say they're retired, but if you look back into them, you see that they're actually working much longer, much harder, even though they don't need to. They consider themselves retirement. And I think that's exactly what you're saying, that it's that liberation of that mind. Is that when your mother sort of said is that you don't need to do this as a compulsory, right? It almost takes away that bit of burden from yourself. It frees away your mind. And then you actually go more deeper into it.
And you enjoy it more.
And you enjoy it
because it's your choice.
So I relate that. Yes, absolutely. It's your choice.
And you know, that brings back to the, you know, the conference we had in March this year. And, you know, I coined the conference FICO, or FICO. And what it stands for, it's a play on the term FIRE. So, you know, financial independence, retire early. But I always had the idea is that, you know, we as doctors, we spend so many years in training doing something we love, being in a profession that we're passionate about. I personally, I never want to retire. I don't. But what I want is I want to have the flexibility to do the things that I want to do. Right? The things that brings me joy, the things that I will get out of bed for, and not be forced to do that. And so that's why the CO, which is career optionality, you know, you get to say, this is the kind of doctor I want to be, and this is the kind of person I want to be, and I have the flexibility to
Love it. You know, do that. When I was being introduced to you in terms of the investment for doctors, right? There's a couple of things came into my mind, right? There's a lot of regards, there's a lot of respect for the doctors and the medical profession as such, right? And this is from outside, and then we'll try to go inside, right? Outside from our point of view as the general public, right? That we sort of look back and we say that, guys, you guys are God's send, right? You guys are the ones who are saving the lives on a day in, day out basis. You guys are the ones who are sort of prolonging the life on day in, day out basis and just making it that much easier. So it's an absolute godsend of a profession, right? And then we look through on the other side, we sort of say that, how about from the doctor's side of it, right? Because you are giving, and you're giving on an ongoing basis. And, you know, you could be, yes, you are qualified and you've got professional training and you've got years of experience, but we are all human, right? So while you are giving, is that your own part also needs to be fulfilled by someone else, right? It means that you need that position where you sort of say, you know what, I'm not going to be a doctor in this moment at this position. And it's okay for me to be vulnerable at this position.
Absolutely. And the power to sometimes just say no.
Yes.
That is realizing that you have the ability and the option to say, no, I don't want to do that.
Yes.
Right? That is just so powerful.
Absolutely. And the second part of that, which I was going to say, is that, say, and please excuse me if I'm generalizing, right? No, the doctors always say they're nurturing, right? As a profession, right? So you are saving lives, you're building lives, you're making lives easy. So everything is about that nurturing, right? Everything is about that protecting. You're the safeguard, which is all good. And then I look back into ourselves as an accountant. We are like step by step 1, step 2, step 3, right? We're sort of very that sort of organized, right? So when we go back into that entire that professional life and that the world of the finance, I sort of look back to the doctors, and I'm generalizing again. I say that they're so intelligent, so capable, but I don't know whether that concept of money and whether that concept of funding and retirement, whether it comes in naturally to the doctors.
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
Simply because it's just that academic qualification that they have and the training they have.
Yeah, I describe it as most doctors are hyper intelligent individuals.
Yes.
And they go into such degree of specialization and then later subspecialization. These days medicine is so subspecialized, as there are probably dozens of different branches of a single specialty, right? The heart doctor that does the stenting, the heart doctor that does the electrophys, the heart doctor that does the diagnostics, the ones that report the CTCAs.
Right.
So there's just like so many different subspecializations. And we forget that knowing about money and having that understanding of dollar and cents, that's a general life skill.
Yes.
And a lot of us are somewhat lacking in general life skills because we have spent all of our time trying to be 110% at this little branch of medicine or life in general. And we sometimes neglect. And I like to think about it as like, we are nurturing the patients in their health, but who is nurturing us? Who is nurturing us in our life?
And that's exactly is where you have that investment for doctors,
and
right? IFD.
Exactly. That's where I want to be.
Loved it, right? So tell us what are the things that you want to achieve with the IFD? And I'd love to.
Oh man, like, the journey so far has been, we've been basically a safe space for people to come and talk about finance. I think that's the first thing. We have now made the topic of money a less taboo topic. I think that's the main thing, because when I was a medical student intern, nobody talked about money in medicine. Nobody ever talked about dollar and cents. Nobody say, how are you investing your money? How are you ensuring your financial well-being?
Yes.
We've got, I was talking to a resident yesterday. She literally told me, it's like when she was a medical student back in Melbourne, I think doing a palliative care rotation, her consultant said to her, you need to go into this group, learn about money, learn about finances.
Good.
Because that will serve you well in the long term.
Good.
So we've gone from a profession where it's all about giving, and we never talked about dollar and cents, to fostering this idea that it's okay to talk about it, and actually encouraging the next generation to talk about it, and get involved in it early.
And how we sort of always sort of say when we speak about the money, right? I mean, the old taboo is that whether it's classy enough to discuss about money, right? Like you're in a formal dining and you discuss about Shakespeare's and you discuss about Van Gogh. You don't discuss about money, right? I mean, we discuss money when we can discuss about the Shakespeare's and the Van Gogh, right? So I hear it, but at the same time, I sort of say that money almost, it doesn't have any color on its own. Right? It sort of forms the color in your hand, right? So it has got these abilities of doing enormous good if one wishes to. And it has abilities of doing silly things as well if one wishes
and
to,
a lot
right?
of evil as well.
So it is sort of in your hand where it is, right? That's point number one. And the second point, which I sort of say, is that how the tax system is that one can earn quite a bit. But when the ATO takes about half of it back, right, it's 180 odd grand. And anything above 180 is that you're paying 47% tax, right? So it's also good upstanding saying that, all right, I'm a specialist, I'm earning about 800,000, I'm earning about $1 million, which is great, a lot of money, right? But when an accountant comes in and says that, okay, you earned about $1 million, I'm sorry, you've got about $450,000 tax, right? 550, which is left, is still pretty good, but it's not $1 million, right? And this is where the money management comes in. We stay within the law, we respect the law, we understand we got to pay a little bit of tax, but how do we still play smart within the tax law that we would never avoid any tax, but we'll minimize the tax. But more importantly, how do we invest that bit of the fund?
I think that's the important piece, right? It's just like we are so good at earning money. We forget that that we also need that money to earn money for us, because we're so good at earning it with our time.
And you know, that's why this podcast that you sort of planned and this podcast you're doing is that I'm excited about this podcast because, as you said right at the beginning, right, that this is not only me coming over, is that you're going to bring in the financial planners, you're going to bring in the mortgage brokers, you're going to bring in the buyer's agency, you know, you're going to bring in the lawyers as such. And from a doctor client's perspective, if I look forward, I say that's what we need. We need a team around it.
We need a team around us. And
the team with that, all of those professionals around it, right?
Yeah.
And you know, when he sort of says that ISB, I do a whole lot of a study and ask a lot of questions. I actually say that to all my clients. I said that none of us, we can be specialist on every single field. You can't, but we still need to know enough so that we can ask the right question to the specialist. So that's what I encourage, that all the doctors that study enough so you can make the accountant accountable in terms of the work to be done.
And the other service providers, make them accountable.
And others as well. And it's a good thing, right? Because it's a mutually learning, right? You're not asking a question for being silly. You're asking a question because you are inquisitive about that question. And from my end as a recipient, I should take that on that sort of encouraging note, right? So IFD is 8 years you've been running, 26,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's the statistics now. I think, you know, that's that covers a good portion of the earlier career people. Obviously, because it's on Facebook, so we're naturally a subset of the Facebook generation. But you know, with this podcast, we're going to end up reaching more people with a website presence. We're also going to be able to reach a lot more people than we currently can. And I think that's where I want to take the group to. You know, I want to be able to reach the people that I cannot reach through Facebook. That's the first thing. And the second thing is also act as a centralized area where the data is trusted. You know, the information is trustworthy. And, you know, I come back to this idea of trust because, you know, as doctors, we learn to be suspicious, we learn to question, we learn to not take everything for granted, what's in front of us, because obviously, you know, when we're dealing with patients sometimes neglect to tell us stuff, sometimes they outright lie. So we always have this reserved quality about us.
Right.
And I want to be able to offer something for the doctors that they can come in and look at what we've written, what we've said, what we broadcast, and say, okay, you know, B's been doing this for a while. He's not here to bullshit us. No. You know, he's here to teach. And, you know, this whole brand is a brand that is reputable and trustworthy. And
you know, the beauty of it, when you're saying B is here to teach, that definition of teaching in my mind has got different elements to it, right? So if I look through it more from a micro level, so to speak, and instead of just literal as it is, the literal as it is that now you've got this podcast and sort of a specialist of becoming in, so I would share some of the knowledge, right? And in your whole Facebook, you've got last 8 years of history of many information. So lots of things to learn. So that's the teaching, right? But you know, where I take it even bigger teaching in my mind is the fact that you've created a platform. And because of that platform is that individual doctor's mind start to think it through and saying, I want to understand that. You are encouraging them to go and do the research on their own, even beyond your Facebook group, right? And that by itself is a teaching. To give you as an example, there's many very high professional we look after, right? So we look after this one gentleman as an example. He's a chair of the board of a very, very, very large listed entity, right? Much older than me, years of experiences, a lot more than me. And he religiously sits down every quarter with myself to do a bit of an accountability session and how is everything going and how is everything doing. And so now at a point of time, I sort of say that I don't know how much I'm contributing, because when we sit down and rather than me contributing to yourself, I'm actually learning from you. I'm the one who's learning every time, right? And I don't know what I'm contributing, because it's sort of, you come over in here, you're so busy, you take your time, you still come over religiously every quarter. So do you still see the value on this session? I'm finding value because I'm learning from you. But the role should be the other way around, right? So do you see the value? And the gentleman says, Munzural, do you know what's the biggest value for myself in this session? I was like, tell me. He was like, the biggest value in this session is not necessarily, with all due respect, not necessarily sitting in here here learning from you. The fact that I know that once in a quarter, I've got these 2 hours with you, and the fact that I know that I've made myself some promise and commitment in front of you in the last quarter, and I need to come back and present to you whatever I achieved in there. And the fact that because I'm proud of what I do means that I don't want to be coming in here and saying that, well, I haven't done anything. I haven't kept any of my commitments, means that my mind starts to think it this way. My mind starts to get focused in terms of achieving some of those things that I planned in there. So I take you as a media for my own self-learning. And I think that is the merit.
You know what you become? You become an accountability accountant.
Yeah, accountability accountant. And I relate that to your IFD, right? I relate that to the IFD, because you would see that you would be hearing so many stories of people getting inspired. Is that they may have learned, let's just say, argument's sake, this much from your IFD, but they went ahead and did a whole lot of things learning on their own. But none of these things, let's say, would have happened unless and until that much learning from yours. So fantastic. Love it.
I mean, I think that's what we've done so far. And,
well done.
I think there's still a lot more ways to go. And
of course,
we'll be slowly revealing some of these over time. So I'm not going to ruin all of the surprises. But look, it's been a long time passion project of mine.
Sure.
And I think I'm just trying to bring this to the next level.
Yeah. And it's serious now, right? Like it's serious in the sense that if you have 26,000 doctors, if not more, right? They're all sort of in there in different shape or form that they're following, right? And then this 26,000 doctors, they've got their individual families. So you multiply that by 4 or 5, right? And then they've got their wider family, you multiply that even more. And then you sort of take them away and say that, well, they've got their own patients, they've got their own families and friends. So you can see your wider circle of influence is so incredible, right? So incredibly big in many, many, many different ways.
You know what's funny when you say that is like, I actually sometimes find myself, talking about finance to patients.
Yes.
Yeah. And just how financially they can navigate the healthcare system. I've got a very dear friend of mine who's a upper GI bariatric surgeon.
Right.
And in bariatrics, what they sometimes do is they tap into their they tap into their super fund to liberate some money
100%.
for life-changing surgery.
100%.
Right? And what I realized just talking to him and talking to some patients is that nobody actually understands the financial consequences of that.
Yes.
And how to overcome that, as they, if they utilize that money, they need to recontribute that back in and what that means for their retirement.
Yes.
Right. So, I've been talking to him about that and he's like, oh, wow, okay, I'm learning a lot about these things. And so perhaps one day when, he has patients that utilize that scheme, then he is also clued in on how to do that, right? So there's just so many facets to it where it just being good about money can impact so many people either directly or indirectly.
That's right. It's that sort of the freedom of the choice and the liberation that you're sort of providing. And the beauty of that liberation is that as soon as we have that liberation, we've got a choice that, yes, we can stay in this profession as a choice, not because I got to pay a $10 million mortgage. The
golden handcuffs.
Right. And not because I got to pay all those school fees and the netball and the soccer for the kids. And sort of I know the 3 overseas holidays per year and all the rest of it, the expensive holidays, right? Not because of those things. I'm doing it because I want to do that. And I've got the choice that if I get up tomorrow morning and say, not for me, and I'm going to change into a complete different profession, that I can do it. I think that choice, that by itself has got such an impact in many ways, including making you better and better and better of what you do.
And making you love your job. I think
making you love your job, right?
That's the important piece.
Yeah.
Because a lot of, I speak to a lot of people and there's quite a number of people that feel trapped.
Yeah.
You got one of the best, jobs in the world, I think. I would say medicine is probably one of the best jobs in the world. And but yet you feel trapped by that job.
And I think you feel trapped because of a number of reasons, right? And a fundamental reason why you feel trapped, my view, is that just not having that enough knowledge on the finance, that how do we take ourselves out of that finance, right? Because you got everything, right? The doctor's income is good, right? Income is good. The bank gives a whole lot of incentive in terms of how to borrow, right? A structure side of it. You've got all those ingredients in there, but we need to utilize it with the right level of knowledge. And if we don't utilize it, your income is not automatically directed to your wealth. Income is not equal to your wealth.
No, it's not. It's not. It's it gives you opportunity to build wealth, but it doesn't equate to wealth.
Absolutely. So I'm looking forward to all of those sessions and some of those topics to go a little bit deeper and see whether we can assist. Yeah.
Yeah. And before we finish, I remember reading this thing quite recently. It's the concept of enough.
Right.
Right. And what is enough?
Yes.
For you as an individual, what is enough for me?
Yes.
And I think when we achieve that,
yes,
I think that's where true liberation comes.
Love it. Agreed.
Yeah. So absolutely looking forward to more podcasts going forward, Munzural.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you, B.